Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Good morning to you, the last day of May of 2017. Nice day. I'm talking meteorologically. I hope in terms of your lives it's more than meteorologically a good day, but So when it comes to countries that I know I look to in terms of a country that one would emulate, you look at countries that you think, now that's the way to go. And we should strive to get a little more over in that direction. I don't know what countries come into your head. Usually it's Scandinavian. But there are two countries which clearly are showing us the way to go. And that is Syria and Nicaragua. Those are the ones I always think of when I think, geez, I wish the U.S. of A. could be a little bit more like Nicaragua. If I really want to push it, Syria. Now, the reason I bring up those two countries as exemplars, as nations who are out ahead of us, is that those two countries are the only two nations in the world that do not support the Paris Agreement. Nicaragua and Syria, we are joining them as countries that we want to emulate. Wow, what a leader we are. What a colossus that bestrides this globe. So, in an effort to do what he was elected to do, which is destroy absolutely everything he could that President Barack Obama, against extraordinary odds and constant pushback from the Republicans, managed to accomplish, including a lot of environmental progress and moving forward, including the Paris Agreement. And news...
Sorry.
Am I jumping around?
A little bit.
News... The news is that President Trump has indeed, after I'm sure a lot of really serious thoughtfulness, after making sure he was aware of all of the factors in the agreement and the possible consequences of exiting the agreement. I mean, I have little doubt he did all that due diligence. He has apparently decided to withdraw the United States. How exactly he's going to do that is still not clear. He's working that out with the head of the Environmental Protection. I choke on those words now because, Scott Pruitt, as head of what used to be the Environmental Protection Agency, is the point man here. And they'll work out the details of exactly how to extract us from this onerous agreement. Onerous, apparently, to certain corporate entities that see money to be made. And to hell with, of course, the future, the health of the planet. There's money to be made. So we're out, or soon will be. Unbelievable. Lest you think he's acting without support here. He got a ton of support from the Republicans in our Congress. In fact, a letter from Mitch McConnell and 21 other Republican senators really was pushing him. Pull out, pull out, pull out. So there you go. He didn't have the cojones to tell the Europeans to their face when he was there with them. Instead, he abstained from their otherwise unanimous then vote. But he didn't have the courage to look them in the eye and explain why he was doing this extraordinary thing that, believe me, historically, if you can just push your head forward maybe 50 years, this will be one of those footnotes in history in which the United States made a move that helped to further the end of the world as we know it, and also helped to further the end of our great country as we have known it. Lest that seem too dire, I don't know. So, what have we come to, huh? I'll tell you what. Here's something interesting. Margie says, speaking of pulling out, it's Trump's father who should have pulled out. Yeah. So guess who's contemplating a race for governor of Ohio? Democrat. This is that state that's getting redder and redder by the minute, and the Democrats there are casting around for someone who can potentially dislodge the Republicans from at least the governor's residence. So they've happened upon someone who at first blush may seem an unlikely candidate, but this too is what Trump's America has brought us to. And I would argue it might in fact be a brilliant choice for the Democrats, seeing as this is now Trump's America. Guess who's thinking of running? He's got a political resume in Ohio. He's got name recognition. He's got all the stuff. He's glib. He's smart. He's a Democrat. Progressive. Rich, so he can fund a lot of it himself. Of who do I speak? Of whom do I speak? Ladies and gentlemen, I give you potentially the next governor of Ohio, Jerry Springer.
Seriously?
Yeah, Celine. I got Celine's attention. Jerry Springer.
No.
Celine, you got to just keep roll with it. Roll with it. You got to roll with it. Here's the good news. As I said, he has political experience. He's smart. He's rich. He has name recognition. And guess what? He knows it too. Guess who the people are who love him? the same people who love Donald Trump. Because he's a crazed showman on TV. Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. So he knows that Trump voters in Ohio could well be Springer voters. And if this is what our politics have come down to in this new age we find ourselves in, we could do worse. The Democrats could do worse than Jerry Springer. I just want to say I'm on board right now. I'm on board. What the hell? You know, unlike Donald Trump, he does have a brain. Unlike Donald Trump, he has held executive position in our political system. He was a mayor of Cincinnati. I'm just saying. It's not going to end. This is the new template for political success. Find someone who people know, who they look up to or like, some entertaining, strong personality on television. It's why you hear that The Rock is thinking of running. It's why you hear that Oprah is actually thinking. It's why you hear that Tom Hanks keeps getting mentioned. It's why you hear this is what we've come to. As Chris Potter, I'll always credit him, famously said about 8 years ago on my show, we are an exceedingly unserious people living in an exceedingly serious time. So, I'm just saying, Governor Springer could be. There are others, of course, more traditional candidates that are considering running, and some of them, I suppose, would be fine, but none of them would capture, right? Would capture the interest, the media, just like Trump did. Knows how to hold an audience. I'm telling you, he's probably the best candidate, given what we now know about our electorate and our media and our corrupted political system. So, I read it and I thought, wow, that makes perfect sense. And this was an article, by the way, not in some, crazed rag. This was, I got this from the magazine Business Insider. Business Insider. Influential Ohio Democrats are actually pushing Jerry Springer to run for the governorship of Ohio in 2018. I don't think that, I have to tell you, given what the reality, we could do worse. He's a liberal Democrat. And I know capable of being serious. So he has remained somewhat active in Ohio state politics. And Donald Trump, has preceded him and shown the way. So there are other people, but he says it's too early to make, the Democrats aren't sure where to start, leaning. But the big shots in Ohio Democratic politics are acknowledging that Springer would start out way ahead with wide name recognition, a very strong ability to communicate. He is, in fact, a superb communicator. So I don't know. I'm just saying. Springer told the newspaper, or the whatever it is, it's a newspaper, I guess, Business Insider, that he will, quote, let people know. So I bet if he thought he could win, he could do it. I mean, he's done his thing. He didn't have to, be the ringmaster of that particular circus. And he did say this. The issue of me running for political office frequently comes up because I am constantly touring and giving speeches and raising money for the Democratic Party. Truthfully, I've been doing that for at least the last 30 years because I believe joining the conversation is part of being a good citizen. If I do decide to throw my hat in the ring, I will let you know. At this point, I don't even have a hat. So he did, though, say, and here's the telling thing. I mean, he gets it. That those people are his people, the Trump voters. Let's see. Springer getting renewed consideration. Speaking with the Cincinnati Enquirer 2 months ago, he said that he considers himself a populist, liberal, progressive. And he says what's probably giving this talk more juice is the Trump victory. People are thinking that somebody outside the traditional political establishment can win. His constituency is basically my constituency. These are fans of the show. I could be Trump without the racism. And then he goes on to say, and in fact, that ought to be the constituency of the Democratic Party. Trump has misled these people. They're not helped by getting rid of health care. These people are being duped. So there you have it. Just giving you a heads up, as I often do, that could be worse. Celine's over there shaking her head. Could be worse. His political past, I can sum up very quickly for you. He was a member of the Cincinnati City Council back in '74, but he had to resign when it became known that he used a check to pay a prostitute. That's a young man's mistake, I would think. You paid a prostitute with a check? So he resigned, but the people he had represented loved him so much, they put him right back on. And he did go after the Democratic nomination for governor in 1982. And he immediately addressed the prostitute thing in his first advertisement. And he said in the ad, I spent time with a woman I shouldn't have. I paid her with a check. I wish I hadn't done that. He finished last among 3 contenders that time around. But this is a different time. This is so not 1982. I got to tell you. So that's all. Just wanted to bring you that wonderful piece of information because it makes perfect sense. Roger's on the same page. He said, at one time I would have laughed at the idea of Jerry Springer running for governor, but I also laughed at the idea of Donald Trump running for president. I'm not laughing anymore. I hate Jerry's show, too. But what the fuck is what Roger says. Yeah. So those are, I guess, the big stories today. I think we're all getting a little weary. I wondered when this would happen. And it's happening to me, and I see it even in the coverage in the newspapers. So we're what? January, February, March, April, May. We're 4 months in, a little over 4 months in. And there's no way that we can keep up with the sort of focused attention that we have had. By the way, speaking of that, I've been remiss in not having Jared Day on, and he will be on Friday's program. And then we hope to have him again every maybe few weeks, trying to give us some historical perspective on what the hell has happened. So Jared Day, former professor of history at Carnegie Mellon, I'm not sure what the heck he's up to right now. Have to find out. And the, what do you call that? Aggregator of a news blog called Daily News Nuggets, which has sort of been hit and miss lately. He obviously doesn't have the time that he used to, or he had to spend time in a psychiatric institution for a while. Oh, I know drinking Diet Coke in the morning, as I have in front of you for so many years, is like something disgusting for a lot of you. Celine has expressed her disgust. And then I can't fail to note that this is a vile habit that I share with the President of the United States. He got that little button. I mean, here's how apparently at these national security briefings he has every morning, 10:30, invariably bang, thumb down on the little red Coke button, and the poor soul who has to wait on him hand and foot comes running in with his Diet Coke, which somebody said when they were talking about his meetings in the morning, said, what kind of a person anyway drinks Diet Coke for breakfast? I don't know. Maybe the kind who can't drink coffee, but wants a little hit of caffeine? I don't know. It's a lousy, nasty, horrible habit, I'm sure. But it wakes my throat up. All that acid. And then maybe wakes me up a little bit too. I don't know. Excuse me. Oh, where to go? Hey, the Wall Street Journal, which is turning in the era of Trump to be more and more of a rag than it ever has been, actually did a lead editorial today headlined "The White House Mess." And I don't think that Donald will be too happy reading this morning. He's definitely not happy this morning. His tweets in the early morning hours the last 2 days have been clear signs of him starting to come undone. I mean, he wakes up angry. He wakes up like a cornered, terrified animal. He wakes up and has to lash out. The news, because the news business has lost its cotton-picking mind, and again, I see this as signs of just overload. If you think of being, I was thinking, I can't stand the guy, Wolf Blitzer. Do you think he's had a day off in a year? Or two? And then add all the other people there. They gotta be sort of, I don't know. They have to be exhausted, obviously. And exhaustion doesn't help them do the job they have to do. So I do feel for the Fourth Estate in these times. But the Wall Street Journal, I forgot what I was saying. The Wall Street Journal says this about Trump in their editorial today. Trump certainly needs to fix his White House mess, but staff changes won't matter unless the president accepts that he is the root of the dysfunction. They were saying, oh, his communications guy, Dubke, is out. Big deal. I mean, it is an impossibility to be the communications head or or poor Sean Spicer. These are impossible jobs, given Trump's psyche and his leadership style, which is to say bully boy, insecure bully boy. So this Wall Street Journal goes on to say, this is apparently how Trump likes to govern, and he has built a White House Tower of Babel. Reince Priebus, his chief of staff, has too little power and must read constantly that his job is in jeopardy. Steve Bannon, man, they want Bannon gone. Steve Bannon is supposed to be the keeper of the populist flame, but his coterie of allies leak relentlessly against economics aide Gary Cohn and National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster. They also say it isn't reassuring that Trump is said to have retained his longtime New York lawyer, Mark Kasowitz, to handle the Russia investigation. Kasowitz is a babe in the Beltway who just happens to have a major Russian bank as a client. And on and on and on. Yeah. Well, you, Wall Street Journal, you got behind him. You helped him along. You got troubles now, too effing bad. So, oh yeah, Margie, thank you. That's what I wanted to say. So I was talking about the president tweeting. And today in one of his tweets, nobody knows what it meant. He totally misspelled a word. He made up a new word. The word is Covfete, like Covfet, right? I don't know what he intended to say. But so, oh my God. And it shows that, again, we are an unserious people in serious times. Everybody jumps on this word and starts having fun with it. Even our media spend time because the president spell check didn't work. Or, we gotta, I'm not even the slightest bit interested in Covfet. Okay. So, here's what I'm thinking. I'll stick with the Wall Street Journal for a little while. I just suggested that they were in bad if they're unhappy with Trump, they deserve what they got. There's still a damn fine newspaper when it comes to covering the arts, movies, that kind of thing. Their review section on Saturday is fantastic. And today, in what is called their cultural commentary, they have a piece by the curator of American music at the Smithsonian. And this guy has written such a beautiful piece to Pittsburgh's own Billy Strayhorn. Now, most people, they're saying, and he says, it's finally Billy's time. He's finally been pulled out of the shadows. The big shadow being, of course, the guy he collaborated with for most of his creative life, which was cut short at the age of 51. But he wrote the music, Duke Ellington. He and Duke Ellington, or just Billy Strayhorn, and then it was played by Duke Ellington, which this guy from the Smithsonian says arguably was the greatest jazz orchestra for 50 years in this country. But for more than half of them, it was this little Pittsburgh guy, Billy Strayhorn, who was writing the music. Duke Ellington's band, their theme song was "Take the A Train," right? That's Billy Strayhorn. The Perennial Satin Doll, that's Billy Strayhorn. And according to this guy, what Billy Strayhorn and Duke Ellington had was something that is extraordinarily rare in orchestral music, in that they collaborated in a way. Usually, if you're talking about an orchestral work, there's one composer. Right? You don't say Beethoven collaborated with Mozart did this. No, that's it. It's one person's creation and vision. But somehow Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn, and you get the clear impression that Strayhorn was the genius. They were able to work together, creating orchestral scoring. And Strayhorn, unlike Ellington, was schooled in classical music. Ellington's sound was deeply rooted in blues, ragtime, the African American music vernacular. Right? Strayhorn, I'm thinking he grew up in Highland Park. Am I right about that? I think. Is that where I see a plaque? Billy Strayhorn lived here, or is that somebody else? There's so many. And this was Homewood. Okay, Homewood. He was. I mean, this was such an odd couple. Duke Ellington, the famous one. Most people never even heard of Billy Strayhorn. Duke Ellington, everybody knew. And Duke Ellington was this charismatic, tall, he was over 6 feet, ladies' man, charming. Strayhorn wanted nothing to do with the spotlight. He was shy. He was about 5'3". He was a tiny little guy. And he was gay. And that last part is what, more than anything, probably made him the shadow figure, the one who didn't get recognized. Because, frankly, Ellington's publicist, a guy named Joe Morgan, was a total homophobe. Not an unusual thing to be at that time. And he made every effort he could to keep Strayhorn's name out of everything. Just wrote him out of history. So finally he's getting his due. This guy says there are 3 books have been written in the last decade about Strayhorn, and what a genius. And they talk also about the fact that before he even met up with Ellington, who was a lot older than him. I mean, sort of like a father figure, too. Strayhorn was composing musical reviews, classical sounding pieces. In the 40s, he was the soulmate of Lena Horne and worked with her in civil rights work, again, eschewing the spotlight, but being there. So just want to say it's nice to know that Billy Strayhorn, musical genius, is finally maybe going to get the history, the awareness of who he was. And if that means pulling a little bit of the luster away from Duke Ellington, believe me, Duke Ellington can afford it, because Duke Ellington wouldn't have been who he was without little Billy Strayhorn from Homewood. Billy Strayhorn's unsung genius. Wall Street Journal today. It's stuff like that you gotta take refuge in these times, right? Excuse me while I do something disgusting. Ugh. It's like acid, but it, for some reason I'm addicted. Margie wonders why Trump and his Diet Coke doesn't make me want to quit. Well, it does, but, have you seen me, by the way? There have been a few little Diet Coke-less days here. There was a few water ones, but that's because I had a blood test to take and I had to be fasting. And then there was that, I don't know, what is that stuff? Infused, ridiculous water stuff? I don't know. Flavored water. Okay. Are you guys out there today? I feel very lonely. Okay, so that's the way it's going to be. Fine. I can do it. I was talking to a friend the other day, called from an airport somewhere. He travels a lot. And he said, yeah, plane's delayed. I don't know how people who travel constantly, business travelers like he, I don't know how they keep their heads together. I just can't imagine. So I want to talk a little bit about the friendly skies. If you have not traveled by air in a while, let's say you haven't traveled by air in 20 years, and you were to travel by air today, you would be stunned. Stunned. I'm always reminded of the fact that we say that so many of the jobs now in America are in the service economy, right? They don't pay well. They involve, I guess, pleasing other people or not. But for a country in which the service industry is supposed to loom so large in our economic wealth and health, it's amazing how good service is absolutely almost unheard of now. It's like it shouldn't be called a service economy. It's an oxymoron. It's absurd. Service, to me, implies a certain level of competence or even congeniality, perhaps. Oh, here's more on... I'll come back. Hang on. Some more on Billy Billy was born in Dayton, but grew up in a shack on Tioga Street rear in Homewood. Okay. He attended Westinghouse High School. And I mean, man, that high school saw some greats go through it, didn't it? Billy Strayhorn, Mary Lou Williams, Ahmad Jamal. And Ben, who's written me this, says that he and Duke Ellington first met at the Stanley Theater downtown here. Ben says, I could go on and on about him. He's a major artist who is finally starting to receive his due credit. Yeah, thank God for that. Because once, I mean, history, yes, the history will out. He will get his due, and his due is huge. I mean, he belongs up there in the pantheon. And it's just simply because he was gay and was not a imposing personality. He was not the performer, that certainly Duke Ellington was. So, and Ellington's huge ego, believe me, elbowed him out of a lot of credit on a lot of albums and records. And I believe somewhere in that article, it says that at one point, Strayhorn did finally stand up to him and said, hey, babe, damn well I wrote that. I want credit. So, okay. Service economy. You realize how bad service is in this country when you encounter good service. When somebody when somebody who's in a retail establishment or that you encounter is just extraordinarily helpful and congenial and all of that, you're often taken aback. Wow. When that should be the job. That's the job. A lot of people think it's surly. I'm supposed to stand here, be surly, make no eye contact, and act as if every customer is a general annoyance to me. So when someone behaves in the proper way and takes pleasure by doing so in their job, that's a great, great experience for everybody involved. I never understood it. If you got a job and your job involves interacting with the people, then you're stuck for 8 hours doing it. Why make it miserable? Why not find the joy you can find in it? Huh? It's like a no-brainer. I know people have bad days, but it's a no-brainer. It's a selfish thing. Think of the old traffic cop here that went, viral back in the day, Vince Cianca, who his job was to stand in an intersection and go, stop, or come on, go. And look what he did with that. He was like an orchestra conductor. He was like Nureyev. He was, I mean... What's his name? Huh? What's his name? Cianca. Cianca. Vic. I mean, he was so wonderful at what he did that he was noted nationally, and I think went on because, it was such a joy. Someone taking joy, owning their work. So anyway, back to what I really wanted to talk about. Excuse me if I'm... My own son said that to me. I think I told you the story about we had to go to the Social Security Administration office in Liberty, and that experience was just unbelievable. The first words that you're greeted with when you walk in the door by a uniformed person, the first words are, Do you have a gun? Well, good morning to you, too. Do I have a what? Do you have a gun? When you answer that one right, then you're asked, do you have a knife? Do you have anything? I'm thinking, what the holy hell? I just came to see. So when we finally made our way through that wondrous adventure, there was a second uniform guy who, after the gun knife guy got done with you, you went to him. And that guy was essentially having to do the same thing over and over, 8 hours a day for everybody who came in. Gave them the same kind of information, telling them to go over there and here's what you do and blah, 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 and be with you shortly. And it's the kind of mind-numbing service job that most people would just be like. And my son and I couldn't help but watch him do his job. He'd done us already, and we watched him do everybody else who was coming through. And I was looking at, he was a young guy. I was looking at him and thinking, God, gee, wow. And I mentioned it to my son. I said, that's not necessarily a fun job. I can't think of anyone who would think that job was fun. And my son said, well, that's true of most jobs, isn't it? He said, but you make it fun. That's how you deal with those jobs. You make it fun. Okay. So back to the airport, my friend, the planes, of course, is delayed. And traveling is just a nightmare. I mean, it's a nightmare. You're stuffed into these little tubes. You are given nowhere near enough space to plant your body. Obviously, we all have different sized bodies. Celine's in better shape on an airplane than I'll be because I outweigh her substantially. I'm longer than she. And I seriously, I don't fit. But there are people a lot bigger than me. And yet we get crammed in there. And then, as you know from recent events, you can be literally assaulted by the very people who are supposed to be giving you service. So, I just want to point this out. This was, I think, a New York Times piece a few days back. And it suggests that rather than get angry at the hapless flight attendants who are placed in an impossible situation, invariably it's women who get placed on the front lines in these service industries, so they take all the crap. They're the point of contact between the big corporation and the consumer. Bang. And so they take it on the chin. Not the CEO sitting in his plush office. So the New York Times said, look, you see people dragged off flights, you see people, all this kind of stuff that we're seeing, but if you want to know where the blame really, if you want to follow, how the hell did we get to this point? You know where you end up? It's actually sort of like, follow the money. You know where you end up? Wall Street. It's Wall Street. And the Times interviewed a lot of veterans in the airline industry, and they all say the same thing. The pressure from Wall Street on these airline carriers to maximize profit and short-term profit is so intense And remember, these guys, they don't think of the passenger as who they're concerned about. They're concerned about their stockholders, because their stockholders can fire them. And Wall Street is consistently, for the industry, incentivizing short-term profit over anything else. And believe me, that includes whatever experience you who bought a ticket are going to have. Here's a guy who says, I've been watching this for 30 years. It's never been like this. Rich bonus packages for top executives are now almost completely tied to short-term income targets and fatter profit margins. The CEO, he doesn't get any credit. I say he because that's what... He doesn't get any credit, any moolah, any money, any job security for putting his attention on customer service. Cram them in, throw them off, cram them in again, throw them off, don't clean the planes, don't do anything, charge them for everything and anything you can think of. Money. 5 years ago, it says here, American Airlines actually factored in, when they tried to figure out bonuses that executives would get, 5 years ago, they were still factoring in things like on-time arrivals, lost baggage, customer satisfaction. That's not part of the deal at all anymore. It's how much money did you wring out of them so that we can get richer. And this is why I can hardly fit in a seat anymore. So you cram as many people into the same space. You know what it's called? You find out the corporate speak. You know what that's called? You had the same plane used to carry, let's say, 100 people. That same plane now carries like 120 people. And you know how they do that? They make the seats narrower, even as Americans are getting wider. They make the leg room inches and inches shorter. So you cram in more and more seats. And you know what they call this in the industry? Densification. Densification. I call it like a bad back. I call it unbelievable physical discomfort, but it's densification. Pack 'em in. That way they generate more and more revenue without having to put out much. They're not building new bigger airplanes. And that's why now you got to pay for things you never paid for. And you don't get fed, and you don't get this, and you don't get that. And now they keep pushing it. So American and United are now rolling out what they call basic economy class. Do you know what that is? Have any of you experienced basic economy class? You're not even allowed to bring a bag. You're not allowed to bring a bag on. You board last. You sit in the worst seat they can find, usually a middle seat. And that's if you're lucky. I think basic economy class also, you could end up Velcroed to the wing, I guess. Oh, you don't pay as much. Oh, I'm just saying. Get this. Despite the occasional air rage incidents and frequent consumer complaints, Wall Street has been very happy with what the airline industry has been doing. United stock has surged, get this, in the last 5 years, when they started making our lives miserable. United stock has gone up from $25 a share to $80 a share in 5 years. Guess the way to get something back is to buy their friggin' stock. Just so you know. So the orders come down on high and end up at that front line. And that's when you see the poor people at the front line maybe having a bad day, ending up losing it, ending up then losing their jobs. What a great system we got. Okay, got some more on Billy Strayhorn. Hang on. Will writes, it's awesome that the Wall Street Journal is honoring Billy Strayhorn. Today is the 50th anniversary of his death. Okay, that must have been the peg they hung it on. Yes. On the 50th anniversary of his death, it's time to give Billy his due. Here, by the way, is Billy Strayhorn with Duke Ellington? And Brian writes, Brian, you think I'm not aware? There's a hockey game tonight? Brian writes, the Penguins have already beaten the capital cities of Columbus, Washington, and Ottawa. Nashville is the capital of Tennessee. If they win the Stanley Cup this year, it will be done by dealing out some capital punishment. Ha ha ha! Good one. Go Pens. Nashville's the capital of Tennessee? I used to know my capitals. Little kids know their capitals, but I don't know them anymore. Okay, yes, and Ottawa is the capital of Ontario, right? And Washington is the capital of these here United States. And Columbus is the capital of Ohio. Yeah. Well, that's a little fact that had escaped me. So there you have it. Yeah, big game over there at the arena. Is that what they still call it? It's the PPG Paints what? Arena? I hate all this corporatization of everything. Oh, well. I think I'm pretty... I got little things here, but gee whiz, you don't want to hear about them because they're even more depressing than what I've already talked about, so let's not. Let me see. We got 2 minutes. See if I have a story. Somebody said to me the other day, I love it when you just tell stories. And I think for some reason my life has, I have experienced a lot of wonderful, funny stories in my existence. So yeah, maybe I should just start at the beginning, and we could do like a month or so of stories from my life.
You sound thrilled.
Huh?
Well,
I used to be fascinated by my life. That's when I was young. And then you get older and you think, all right, already, enough. But there are some good stories. I'll tell you just one quick one. It's the first one. Because I was born on an extraordinarily cold January night in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And... my mother was a relatively clueless mother. She'd already had a kid. That would be my brother. But she was prone to listening to older women who told her what to do. well, you shouldn't this and that, or you should blah, blah, blah. And so she was told, for some reason my brother escaped this fate, but a woman named Eleanor Stone told my mother in no uncertain terms that if she wanted a healthy little girl, that I should nap outdoors. Now, I'm born in January in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Outdoors, I'm supposed to nap? Uh-huh, I napped. A little infant. I was stuck. It was a little screen porch, but it was a screen porch, so it was below zero. My mom dutifully stuck me out there. Granted, I was bundled up. But yeah, I was put out in sub-zero weather every day to sleep. And I don't know. Maybe Eleanor Stone was absolutely right, because I now, in the dead of winter, sleep with my windows open. And sometimes even a fan on. I can't be cold enough when I sleep. So I wonder if that's where that came from. I don't know. Jeez. So anyway, big deal. It was just a little quickie. But yeah, I survived Eleanor Stone's advice. All right, guys, that's it. And go Penguins. Oh, boy. I might be blurry-eyed again tomorrow, especially if they go into overtime, because I just can't. The adrenaline. I don't know how do you, I know people who, right after the Penguin game, they go right to sleep. How the hell do you do that? Okay. See yins tomorrow, and remember Justin Day coming in Friday, okay? Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.